Welcome to Tales from the Bridge. My name is Tristan.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Ryan.
And this month it was my pick, and we are going to dive deep into Interstellar. Now, we are going to geek out about it for sure, but we're also going to be chatting about some different angles, take some different points of view on the film, talk about Christopher Nolan, the director, and his approaches to filmmaking.
And be sure to stick around after for our honorable mentions for the letter I.
And as always, follow the show, rate the show, let us know what you think. We would love to hear from you. Follow us on Instagram. Send us an email with any book recommendations or film recommendations. Check the show notes for links to how to reach out.
Okay, let's make our way over to the bridge. Okay, so let's talk Interstellar. I have to admit, one of my all-time faves, so it was the obvious choice for me. Came out in 2014, directed by Christopher Nolan, starring Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain, Michael Caine. And it's set in a future where Earth is becoming uninhabitable due to climate disasters and crop failures. And so McConaughey plays a former NASA pilot who's recruited for a secret mission to find a new home for all of humanity. He teams up with a group of astronauts who travel through a wormhole near Saturn in search of habitable planets in another galaxy. I did have to steal the IMDb synopsis for that one because despite it being one of my favorite flicks, it's really hard to describe. Like the basic beats of the plot are there, but it's about so much more. Isn't it?
I actually was very impressed by it. I was like, wow, you really just like summed it up. Yeah. It's like, because like you say, there's just so many facets to it. I think it would have been very difficult to like put a like sterile like summation on it. No, that's true. It's very, very.
Don't thank me. Thank IMDb.
Well done. IMDb.
If you haven't seen it, then go and watch it, hit pause, go and watch it now, and then come back to this podcast because there's no way that we're not going to enter spoiler territory. But also, if you have seen it, pause the podcast, go and watch it because it's always worth a rewatch. It's fantastic. Let it be fresh on your brain, and then hopefully you'll feel like you're part of this conversation. You can do that on Paramount Plus, and it's also available to rent on Apple TV as well. So let's get straight into it. First impressions. Can you guys remember the first time you saw this movie?
I do remember the first time. It was in the theater, the opening weekend. And yeah, I was blown away. I do remember walking out of the theater with my friend who I was watching it with, and he hadn't said anything yet. We were walking in the car, and I kind of just said, I think that was the best movie I've ever seen. And I thought he was going to say, it was okay. And he was like, yeah, I think it was too. And then we just talked about it for a long time and how really refreshing it was to see something new that was that good. My opinion has changed a little bit, so we'll get to that. But yeah, my first impression was blown away. And even as I rewatched it recently, again, I was like, damn, that is really good. But I do have afterthoughts that are a little bit contrary to that.
I was trying to think back, and I know I did catch it in theater. The thing I was trying to remember is I think I saw it by myself, and it was literally, I had some time one evening and I knew nothing about it. I just knew that it was a space movie. And I was like, great, let's do it. And yeah, I was not prepared actually, I think, for what it was in my first viewing, because I remember coming out of it going like, I remember thinking about it a lot and thinking that it was an incredible piece of film, but I don't know if every piece of it stuck with me as well as it could have, because I went in so cold. I didn't know what to expect. It kind of just hit me. And there's just so much to unpack from it, right? Since then I've watched it innumerable amount of times. So definitely been able to sort of flesh it out. I don't know how much my feelings have changed since that initial viewing. Honestly, I still think it hits me very similarly to that first time every time I watch it, but we'll definitely get to that.
You know what's interesting is that I actually can't remember the first time that I saw this movie. And considering it's up there with my all-time favorites, you would think that it would have this like monumental kind of place in my core memories, but I can't remember it. I just feel like this movie has been a part of my life ever since it was released. I mean, it's only 10 years, but it just feels like this sounds really airy fairy and cosmic now, but like I just feel like it's always been with me. It didn't start, it didn't end. It's just always present in my life. Okay. I really like this movie. Like we're at the start of the podcast. We really need to like let everybody know that I'm a real geek about this. I'm already offended that Tristan has some notes. So just tread carefully.
I'm coming.
But no, I think we all agree that it is a fantastic film. It is one of the greats in science fiction, despite it, and there's a lot of history there. So that's a big kind of statement to make. But what is it exactly about this movie that we love so much? Like for me, I feel like obviously it's hard to pinpoint on exactly one thing. I think that the acting is phenomenal. I think that the premise is, I almost said out of this world, but it is. For those listening and not in a visual medium, Ryan's giving me eyes for the cheesiness of that one. The acting phenomenal, the way it looks, but the score. Like I could listen to the score if I ran marathons. That would be my warm-up material, right? It's so beautiful and so perfect. So I'm just really interested to hear from you guys. What is it about this that we just love?
I think it was the scope. And what I mean by that is it goes from a very small, personal family story with a global background, right? Like you said, the crop failures, and clearly there's this bigger global thing going on, but it's all very personal and about, the family, but mostly about the father-daughter relationship and the idea that it then gradually kind of beautifully rolls out into this interstellar adventure, and it just felt like it went from the most closest personal relationship, a person to a person, all the way out to like our existence in the universe, and it felt so natural that we finally got to that point. I think that was the most kind of awe-inspiring thing for me overall as a film, is that you go on that journey from close to far, and it all feels like it is connected, which is such an insanely difficult thing to do.
Yeah, for me personally, I think that I have enjoyed it more and more every time that I've watched it. And I do feel like every time I watch it, something else stands out even more. It did actually win one Oscar, which was for special effects, which are just outstanding in this film. I think you guys came over recently and we watched this together in preparation for this pod, and this viewing this time around, that was the thing that really stood out to me: how mind-blowing these special effects are, how realistic they are, how immersive it feels. You really feel you're out there and you feel alone. And absolutely beautiful, absolutely brilliant.
We noted a few times the difference in the way that the shots were framed when they were inside the spacecraft versus the full screen vistas outside, right? Again, sort of playing with that like close and vast, right? Personal and huge and empty, right? But yeah, absolutely gorgeous the entire time.
Okay, so let's talk about Christopher Nolan for a minute. He makes this off the back of Inception, off the back of his Dark Knight trilogy. He's received a little bit of criticism that some of his films, while very intelligent, kind of lack a real emotional core to them. There's a lot of criticism about his female characters and how they are kind of emotionally cold. They're often written just to serve a motivation to the male characters. Like, for example, in Inception, you've really only got two female leads in that, and one of them only exists in a male's mind. So there was a lot of kind of criticism around his characters, particularly his female characters, but also kind of the emotional side of his movies in this sense. And he's never outright said that Interstellar is a direct response to that criticism. But I think it's interesting that this is the film that he chose to kind of embrace the emotional side. And I think it's really clever, and I think it's poignant and lovely that the love is a powerful force theme that he chose to take, centered around a father-daughter relationship, which is obviously one that he could relate to. I think his daughter was around 11 or 12 at the time of filming, and so this was obviously an influence with the Murph and Cooper relationship. It's a girl dad movie. You guys are girl dads. Talk on
Yeah,
it.
it definitely I think speaks to the dads of daughters for sure because it's kind of about regrets. It's kind of about being responsible, being there. And when the world is at stake, what do you do? Obviously, none of us have to worry about that, but we do need, as parents and dads, we do need to be present. And I think that theme is the strongest and the most important theme. And I think that's what carries it so much further for a lot of people is that, and I think, I mean, maybe for females also, that the response is about the same, which is being in awe of the relationship and the hurt and the pain that the father goes through and the daughter goes through. And then, of course, at the end, you don't get this perfect happy ending, but you kind of do. You really do. And that if this movie did not end the way it did, I wonder if I'd feel the same way. But because it ends with forgiveness, I think that that just makes it so much more important to me personally. And I think that's what it is a very personal movie.
Yeah, I don't think it would have resonated as much, even on my first viewing, if it hadn't been for that string of emotion to pull you along through it. And thinking about the year it came out, I mean, my daughter would have just been born, basically, like right before it came out, right? So having that personal sort of mirror held up, right? And just how overwhelming it is, just the responsibility of being a parent, but also then very closely examine the responsibility you have to society in general too, right? And that's the fight, right? That's the thing that makes his leaving so interesting and gut wrenching.
I think Nolan has a real fascination with time, and it comes up as a theme in a lot of his movies. And just to kind of touch back on what Tristan was saying, part of what happens as the movie progresses is that they lose a lot of time, Earth time, back on Earth, because where they are, time moves a lot faster than back on Earth. So by the time that McConaughey's character is reunited with his daughter, she's an old lady and she's about to die. And so again, he's run out of time. The whole film is there's like a subtext there about running out of time and not making the most of the time that we have. And even at the end of the movie, he's out of time. And so when you say it doesn't have that perfect bow on the end, that's how I kind of interpret that, is that time's going to march on. You can go ahead and save the world, but time's always going to move on the same that it will. And it's being aware of it and being able to reflect on it in such a way that obviously relates to his relationship with his daughter, I think is really powerful. I think it's really lovely to watch. I really like Murph as a character. I know that some people find her a little bit irritating, and she's definitely got daddy issues. Like, they are strong and clear, but you know, she's a really intelligent woman. She's a strong scientist. She's got an ambition. She doesn't give up. Dr. Brand, another really great character. She is very intelligent. She senses that love can transcend all other things. I mean, she picks up on that before anybody else does, and she's right. Everyone should have listened. What I wonder though is, fantastic film, but did Nolan stick to it? When we look at his future films that he goes on to from here, is the emotional depth there, or is it kind of a one and done situation?
Well, you got to think that Nolan would have been a product of the Spielberg age. Like he would have grown up in the 80s, 70s and 80s where he got all these boy adventures, you know? And I think that that's something I didn't really look back and see until I was older to go, oh, those are my movies because they're about boys that go on adventures. So I can see why so many filmmakers make films like these. I still do love those films, you know, like I personally like the Dark Knight series more than Interstellar. I think Interstellar is a more perfect film than any of those three films. But I can't watch Interstellar anytime. I can't put it on anytime and watch it beginning to end or start it in the middle and watch just the end. I can't do that. I can do that with The Dark Knight Rises. And then, of course, you got a World War II movie that came after Interstellar, which
Dunkirk,
is,
yeah, and
yeah,
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer, yeah. And the females are, I mean, they tried to give the females some depth, but what story can you tell for the females that, I don't want to go too far into that, but I have heard, just like you said, Hannah, I have heard a lot of people say, I did speak to a film critic on the show, Scott Ryan, last year, and he doesn't like Christopher Nolan films. He says they're not warm. They're
Mm.
cold. Like there's no warmth. Like they're fantastic movies. I see why they're good, but there's no warmth. And I do have to say I agree. I don't need warmth when it comes to the Dark Knight series because that's about personal growth. It's a boy story, but Interstellar is definitely his warmest, I would say,
Hmm.
because of that cozy father-daughter relationship, and such an amazing, happy kind of ending. But as a filmmaker, I think that he's so good. Is like I won't deny Interstellar is perfect, but does it have the warmth? That's I don't know. I wonder about that.
I completely disagree with you though. I get what you're saying about Dark Knight being a boy movie. It's a comfort movie for you. Didn't resonate with me. Out of the trilogy, I really like the Heath Ledger of it all, but other than that, I did do a rewatch recently, and I'm like, yeah, this still isn't for me. Can appreciate how good the filmmaking is and everything, but it's just not my vibe. Whereas I do think Interstellar has so much warmth. This idea that uh, love is more than just an emotion, but it's also something that's powerful and also metaphysical. I think the scenes when they return from the planet where they lose a lot of time and Cooper receives all the video messages from his family. I mean, it's an iconic scene. Memes have been made out of it because McConaughey's acting is just so phenomenal. He's receiving it and just receiving these messages and just absolutely sobbing. Side note on that, that was apparently a one and done. Apparently, there was a lot of rehearsal suggested, and McConaughey was just like, no, let me do it. I did, like, that's a direct quote. I saw an interview of him saying that. I do get the sense that McConaughey likes the smell of his own farts a little bit, though. So he could have been pumping up his own tires when he was saying that. But he says one and done, and if he did, it was brilliant. It was absolutely beautiful, and yeah, real warmth there. The fact that the movie all ties in together of Murph and Cooper being reunited. How are you not feeling warm? That's just like putting a cozy blanket over your shoulders. It gives you the warm fuzzies.
I would also say that Tars gives the film some warmth as well, somehow. Like that, like he's a very warm character.
So you're referring to one of the robots that they have along for the journey to assist them. There's actually been some interesting critique on the robots that some people feel that they have more depth to their character than the humans. What say you to that?
I Tars in particular, I would say that is the case, but I think they also serve a very important narrative function, which is to just sort of like lighten things up just a little bit, right? I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't have a more intense feeling in basically every single scene of this movie that it's just such a breath of like fresh air. Like their first interaction is so glib and so lovely that like it puts you at ease. Like at the like by the time you meet him, you are already so ramped up and on edge that like this is so intense. And then you get this kind of like wisecracking robot, right? When he wakes, he's in the, he's being held, right? He doesn't know where he is. It's a very overwhelming thing. There's no introduction to the fact that this is a robot. It's just, oh, it's a robot that seems to have like, oh, this technology exists. That's another beautiful thing about meeting TARS for the first time. It's just you're like slapped in the face with where they are technologically a little bit more, right? And just that little bit of exposition about how they were used for military and now they've been decommissioned and used for other things. And it's just yeah, there's just so much buildup and so much buildup. I just felt like it was a lovely bit of levity that he brought to it. Who was and it's Bill Irwin is the gentleman who voices him, and he's just lovely, absolutely. Does he have more depth than a lot of the actors? I don't know if I go quite that far, but I do love him very much, and I he has a place in my heart in this film for sure.
He's definitely a fan favorite.
A lot of the characters don't have any depth though. Like even just think of Dr. Brand. I mean, in some ways he kind of becomes, he's not the villain, but he's kind of like the worst character, right? He's kept a secret. And it wasn't until Murph knew that he kept a secret that she was able to solve the problem and know that the problem has been solved and then work around that. But yeah, his character, I mean, really, he just serves one function. Uh, a lot of them, yeah, just even the scientists, they have one function. Even Matt Damon's character, I mean, he's a little bit interesting because he kind of goes AWOL at the end, but that's
Yeah,
not
you want to talk a
much.
villain? There's your villain.
There's a villain, but he's a small villain for like a short story. Like
Hmm.
that's like the short story within the story of Interstellar.
Um, I feel like there's so much to dig into on in all of this, and this podcast will last 3 hours if we do. So I want to kind of pivot and talk to you guys about the science behind the science fiction of this movie. It's something that's really often discussed when we're talking about Interstellar, because as a lot of people know, uh, a lot of the science behind the black hole and the gravity conversations that they have, the time slippage. There was a. Do you guys know the name of the guy who
Kip
advised
Thorne.
on the film? Kip Thorne.
Yep. So he wrote the book called Gravitation, 1973. So he's well educated when it comes to what little we know about gravitation and kind of how it works in space, which still all lines up to Einstein's theory of relativity, which he's built upon.
His work in that book specifically also inspired Sagan's novel Contact, which then became the 97 film, which McConaughey was also in. So kind of cool that there's
Nice.
a nice little Kip connection there. Anyway,
Nice tie-in.
yeah.
Yeah. So obviously they had actual scientists advising on the movie. There was rules and parameters that the scientists set out, basically saying we'll be involved as long as you kind of stick to these rules. And the majority of the science kind of set out in this film is plausible. Some of it's a little bit more of a stretch of that plausibility, but by all accounts, it is plausible. But it is also something that's discussed quite heavily with the film because um, it's really science heavy. And I've watched it so many times that I can't remember if there was a little bit. There's a British film critic who uses an expression called "windy windy timey wimey," which is something that he refers to when films that time travel or go really high concept do some things in the plot that you just have to accept are a little bit windy windy timey wimey, and just don't think about it too much. It's the Basil exposition in Austin Powers. You shouldn't think about it too much either. Otherwise, it'll make your brain explode. Now that I've seen it so many times, Interstellar, I do think that I understand what's going on. I understand the the 5 dimension tesseract that they build and its purpose. Do you think that it's a little bit too science heavy for a film? Is it too overcomplicated for a everyday moviegoer?
With the exception of the Tesseract, no. Like I think in some form or another, in other forms of media, all the other concepts they talk about, like even just as the basis of relativity, right? I think even just the average person, even if you are not a big science fiction person, you would have at least heard the term before, if not had a loose understanding about what it suggests. And I think they do a pretty good job, right? I mean, they even do the fold over paper wormhole thing that's become a bit of a cliche in these movies. I the part where, I mean, now that I've seen it enough times, I feel like I've built it up enough in my head to like swallow it and it to be fine. But I do think that the Tesseract scene in particular sort of pushes the envelope of what I can accept as a viewer for being like, yeah, definitely this is happening. But that's just, yeah, that's more just my own kind of bias. But
I'm not smart enough to understand any of it. At the same time, the science in this film did lead to the most science fiction aspect of this film, which is what happens when you go inside a black hole. So that's very science fictional. But on the subject of the Tesseract, you create the classic bootstrap paradox, which makes no sense at all. If time travel is possible, it kind of stops you from believing that time travel can be possible in terms of going backwards in time. I think that time travel, if it ever happens, will only be moving forward, and because moving backwards just sounds so crazy because you get all these paradoxes. And just to go over that, the bootstrap is kind of like in Terminator, where the only reason that Terminators exist is because one went back in time and was destroyed, and he left his hand behind. So they mimicked that technology to create the Terminators. In Interstellar, it is the Tesseract, and at the beginning of the movie, when the books start to fall and they figure out the coordinates based on Morse code, more or less, how could that happen if Matthew McConaughey had not gone into the Tesseract? So that just creates that paradox. And then one other thing with the Tesseract, this is like crazy science fiction that kind of just gets brushed off in the film, which is fine. But they suggest that the Tesseract was built by humans in the distant future. It never says that's the truth. It could have been aliens, but I kind of like that it does like this is one of the most. I think Nolan tried to make a very real science fiction film with one of the craziest unrealistic science fiction ideas, which is a tesseract, time travel, and distant humans being able to communicate with us in the past. That's a crazy idea that they just don't talk about much. But what a big, uh, very ambitious idea. Like that could have been scary writing this film, going like, but what about the tesseract? Like if people don't believe that, the movie makes no sense. The movie falls apart.
Yeah, it was a
Well,
swing for sure.
yeah.
But I also think it is sort of the scaffolding for everything else, right? It makes all the rest of the story possible, and that's the piece in the end that I think is what you walk away with, right? Is yeah, I don't know.
And it's the piece that took them the longest time to get to when writing it. They had the premise for the movie and they had all of the beats up until the ending. And apparently that's the bit that took a real long time. They just couldn't figure out how they were going to end this sucker, how they were going to land the plane and get it all to tie together. And this is how it ultimately came together. And yeah, as you say, for it to be so high concept and so intricate and really complicated, it worked. In my opinion, I feel like that's divisive. Some people feel like it didn't. Some people feel it did. But in my opinion, the plane was landed. Speaking of landing planes, this is my segue. I cannot let this podcast end without mentioning the docking scene because it's just phenomenal. I don't know what else to say about it other than I love it and I will watch it anytime. I often just watch it on YouTube. Just that one scene. I feel like the editing, the pacing, the tension of the docking scene is just so beautiful and is the reason why I love cinema. So, do you want to do a quick fire favorite scene?
Favorite scene for myself, I have to name two, one at the beginning, one at the end. The corn chase scene was phenomenal. When I just remember being like the music, the way it was shot, the excitement, like that was so good. And then yeah, the very end when he sees his daughter and she's older than him, that it just makes everything worthwhile.
I think probably the main one that stands out, and when I think about this film, I think about this for some reason. I think it was just because it was so overwhelming the first time I saw it, was the first planet they end up on, and just the overwhelming alien feeling, and just something so simple as just it's just water. I know what water is. It's everywhere. It's fine, but just they managed to turn that scene into such a intense, terrifying alien experience that kind of really brought me into like, okay, we are not in Kansas. We are not at home anymore. Like, just yeah, something simple but really powerful.
What about hot takes? Anyone have any hot takes?
I didn't think it was a hot take, but after what you said earlier, maybe it is. Um, I feel like Anne Hathaway's speech is very cringe, actually, even after like so many viewings. Um, I appreciate the impetus behind it. I appreciate what it's suggesting, and I agree in many parts of it. It just something about the timing of it and the I don't know. There's just something about the pacing of the way it's delivered that it loses me every time, and it sucks because I want to love it and I want to believe in it, right? Like I want to see that thread be pulled a little further. And I love the bit about social utility and love and the whole bit, but there's just something about it that just it falls off for me every time, and I hate that it does, but I've never been able to watch it without just I don't know. Maybe I'm a curmudgeon. I don't know.
I think I might watch it with a fresh lens next time that it comes on and see where you're coming from with that. I adore it and I love it, and I think it's really well delivered. Again, tying back into giving his female characters a bit of depth. Of course, it's the female character who wants to pursue love because that's a female stereotype, isn't it? And, despite the fact that they do kind of make it okay at the end, they immediately dismiss her. So this really well-rounded female character is immediately dismissed by two fellow male scientists. So, Nolan didn't hit every single time. So he's working on it though, I suppose. The only kind of, I don't even know if this is a hot take. I know that Tristan's going to slap me across the computer monitor, but my hot take is that Interstellar is better than Inception.
I don't think that's too much of a hot take, is it?
No?
Is that a hot take? Does isn't
Okay.
That's a
if I
warm
was
take,
yeah,
man.
like if I was to make a
Fine. I
bet
thought I was
on 100
being
people we interviewed,
controversial.
I don't know.
I think Inception's fantastic, and maybe it'll be an honorable mention, but it's more of an action film when Interstellar is a epic drama.
Okay. Well, there's my ice cold take.
But maybe
Interstellar
we're
is better than
but
Inception.
maybe
Well,
we're
just
like
because
not a great sample group for that though. Like because
it
thinking
could
about
be.
it, because thinking about it, I do wonder, like if I was just to take a random poll of like people I know in general, if I was to put the two in front of them, I do wonder if they would land on Inception only because I wonder if they think that Inception feels fresher as an idea, where they think of maybe they might just
Mhm.
think of Inception as like that's a space movie. I've seen space movies, right? Like I don't know.
Okay, one last thing before we wrap up. Double feature. What are we watching Interstellar with on our movie marathon?
The first thing that came to my mind was 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think would be a
100%.
really lovely side by side. It'd be a
Hmm.
long evening, but I think it would be worth it. I just think the themes are so close, and there's even a little homage to it in Interstellar, right? That's why they put the wormhole near Saturn.
I mean, there's a bunch of movies that came out quite recently, well, in recent years, that I think are really on the same vibe. Arrival is one of them. Science fiction with that real emotional core. It's about there's a parental relationship there as well. The Martian, I think, ties in real nicely with this one as well. The stranded planet aspect, double Matt Damon feature. Why not? Let's get a little bit of Mark Watney in there to restore our faith in Matt Damon. Um, yeah, I think there's a few sci-fi ones that come out recently that tie in real nice.
I think a film that pairs, this is almost way too easy, but Contact. It's also a father-daughter story. It's
Mm.
also someone traveling through time because of technology handed to us from outer space or deep in time. And it's also got that Kip Thorne connection. So that's
Yep.
interesting.
And everyone loves Carl Sagan.
Yeah, Carl Sagan was like the best human being ever. This is a little bit of trivia, but obviously we've got a bookshelf as a set in Interstellar, and I thought it was worth just mentioning a few of the books that are on that shelf, which are interesting. One being The Stand by Stephen King, which is a post-apocalyptic book. Apparently, this is one that Nolan has loved for many years. Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon. Pynchon's one of his books has been made into a film recently by P.T. Anderson, One Battle After Another. That was Vineland, which was good. So Gravity's Rainbow, never read that one. A Wrinkle in Time. There's a Tesseract in that. There's a lot of other ones. One of my favorite books, definitely my favorite author, The Wasp Factory by Ian M. Banks. I'm really curious why that book's there because it doesn't really relate to the story or the plot very much, but that is one of my favorites. So just a few of the books. There's a lot more, but those ones stood out
They had
to me.
mentioned as well that there's a bunch of the ones that are like the more science-based textual books were the ones that he actually read as research for the film when he was writing it.
Nice. Well, should we do some honorable mentions, one each? What do we got?
The letter I is pretty good. there's some pretty awesome films. We maybe should stop doing the alphabet and just rename the podcast to Tales from the Bridge I edition, because there's some really good sci-fi flicks that start with I, right?
It's true. I won't mention the one that we've mentioned 17 times already. But I will mention one and that's just Independence Day. Because
Yes.
I've just watched the hell out of that movie. I've seen that movie so many times. It's
Oh, I
embarrassing
think I
actually how
could
many
say it
times
word
I've
for
seen it.
word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's oh man, so great. Just a fun popcorn adventure.
Hmm.
Like yeah. Anyway, fantastic.
There's a lot. There's a lot. So it's going to seem weird that I'm making this my choice. But do you guys remember The Island with Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson?
Yeah, that's a terrible movie. Why are we talking about it?
I do
It's
remember
so
that not being great.
good.
Oh my God.
Oh no, sorry.
I loved The Island. Roll on around. You all better hope that it's my pick next time we have I, because it's
Oh
The
no.
Island. Steve
Oh my
Buscemi,
God.
Oh man. All right.
clones.
All right.
It's
I'll
so
prepare
fun.
myself so in 3 years when we circle back.
I'm going to mention Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the
Someone had to.
1978.
No.
That is just a fantastic film. I love 70s anything almost. 70s science fiction slash horror. That's like amazing. So it's a great film. It's mysterious. I love practical special effects, and it's got like it's not heavy gore, but there's some interesting gore, and it's great. Love it.
We've also got some like classic actors, right? You got Donald Sutherland. Just
Yeah.
speaking of memed images from movies.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, nice.
And of course, Jeff Goldblum.
Yep.
He's great in that. I think that's one of his first breakaway roles, or
Oh,
first
definitely.
bigger roles.
Yeah, he's a baby in
1978.
that. Yeah,
All right. Well, you guys want to find out what we're watching next?
absolutely.
Okay. So I don't know if you've looked at a list of sci-fi films that start with the letter J. You are the ones that are going to have to watch the film that I pick.
The
So
suspense is killing me, dude.
yeah, there's not much, and the notable films that start with the letter J are not very good. So you've brought this upon yourselves.
Please don't say
Um,
Jupiter Ascending. Please don't say Jupiter Ascending.
we are watching Jupiter Ascending.
Oh, God damn it.
The
What
jokes became
else
real.
could we watch?
Oh
What
no.
else are you wanting to watch?
Well,
Do
you'll
you
find
want to
out.
watch
You'll
Judge
find out
Dredd?
when we have our honorable.
We're not
mention.
watching Judge Dredd, okay?
Oh,
You can
Jupiter
do that.
Ascending.
So I remember being very excited to see Jupiter Ascending in the theater. Obviously, let down coming out of the theater that night, but it's worth talking about because it's a huge movie. Like it is a big movie. There's so much going on. It falls flat and it's cheese but you know what? I really appreciate the Wachowski siblings. Uh, I think that this is what they did after Cloud Atlas, which is a fantastic film and one of my favorite books. So yeah, I was hyped to see this, and definitely let down. But to be honest, I don't really feel like there's much to talk about if we were to watch Johnny Mnemonic. And one of my favorites is Journey to the Center of the Earth, 1959, but I don't feel like that's one that we could really talk about. So really, look at the list of sci-fi films that start
Didn't
with
they
J.
remake it with The Rock? We could have totally done that one.
What, the second one? I've seen that a few times because my kids like that, and there's not much to talk about with that either. Um, so yeah, we're
It's
watching
okay.
Jupiter Ascending. We got a half man, half wolf who has rollerblades that fly. Um, and
I
yeah,
mean, what else? What else could you possibly want?
exactly.
We're really making people look forward to the next episode. I think it's going to be fun.
No, well,
I think
so
we're going to have
even
some
if
fun with this one.
Oh, I think we're gonna have fun.
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you very much. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Jupiter Ascending next for the film club. I don't know. Next book club episode is Neuromancer. Join us for that one. Thank you again. Until next time.